Good evening. If you're just now joining us, if you'll just go ahead and sign in at the website on the screen, and we'll get started right around 6:05. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us this evening. For those of you who haven't gotten a chance, because you might be an upperclassman, not gotten a chance to meet Dr. Walker yet, I just want to introduce him to you all before he gets us rocking and rolling. This is Dr. Walker, and he is the Director of Global Leadership and Social Impact here in the Longhorn Center for Academic Equity. And he is going to be our presenter today. If you've ever been introduced to Dr. Walker, I know being a new employee here, it was a very unique experience for me. Most people say, "Hi, this is someone's name. Hi, this is someone's name." And when I was introduced to Dr. Walker several times, each time it was started with, "Hello, this is Dr. Walker, and he does this, 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 and this." And it was something very unique for me to notice being new, is that nobody else was introduced by their list of attributes or their skill sets. And so the more I've gotten to know about Dr. Walker over time, is everybody talks about what a great brand creator he is. And so we brought him in today to talk to you a little bit about his life experience and how he has used creating a brand to his advantage to propel his career forward. And so with no further ado, Dr. Walker, thank you so much for being here today. And whenever you're ready, I'm going to stop sharing and let you get started. Thanks so much for being here.
Ooh, great. Thank you so much for the fabulous introduction. Yeah, that was nice. That felt nice. It made me feel all good about myself, Michelle. So I'm gonna share my screen so I can take y'all to the PowerPoint that I have created. And it starts not right here. See, y'all know I was about to be terrible at this. Hold on. All right, now I'm about to get it. You should have just expected something to go wrong when it comes to me and this. All right, boom, got it. All right, you see this journey, my journey is my brand? Yes. All right, great. So when I was thinking about doing this workshop, Alicia reached out to me, Michelle reached out to me, and they're like, "Oh, tell me all about branding." And to be honest, I wouldn't claim to be an expert in branding whatsoever. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach to this. I'm going to tell you all a little bit about my journey and how my journey has become my brand. And my brand, in many ways, is my journey. And I think I'd rather go there first than try to get into like all these technical things about what you could be doing on LinkedIn or how to craft your resume. Because first and foremost, when it comes to a brand, your brand is you, right? Your brand is you. And sometimes I think at you all's age, it can be so stressful to be like, what is my major? Or what am I passionate about? Or what do you mean create a brand? Like, I'm just trying to figure out how to get past this class. But I think sometimes we overthink about these things. And sometimes it's just nice to get back to the basics, to what makes us happy, to what makes us tick, to what makes us passionate. And so that's why I'm going to tell you all or present the way I'm going to present today. And the title is My Journey is My Brand. So jumping into the first slide, there's this book I'm reading called Emergent Strategy. Has anybody read this book? Okay. All right. Whatever. It is by this lady, Adrienne Marie Brown. And she talks a lot about like how the strategies that we need to be utilizing, we need to be gaining from, in many ways, what's natural, right? The natural world. And I really like this quote, and I wanted to start off with this quote. It says, your life is a miracle that cannot be recreated. Just like a snowflake, right? There is only one you. So your brand is already there. Your brand is already created in many ways. You just have to really lean into it because there's no one else in this world who's had the same set of experiences as you. That makes you unique, right? But most of us, we're afraid to really lean into who we are and what we believe in and what makes us passionate because we are shaped so much by what society suggests that we should and could do. So I have 3 points that I want you all to take heed of, and you all will see these kind of through my journey. First is, what am I passionate about? How do we identify what you're passionate about? 2 is, how do you get experience and how do you learn more? How do you access experiential learning for the things that you're passionate about? How do you get experience in that lane? And 3rd, be a problem solver, right? How do you become solution oriented? And now I think these things are super basic. I'm obviously 35, so it's taken me a while to kind of like really come full circle with my brand. But I would say that I've always followed my heart. I've always followed what I was passionate in, and it has came full circle for me. So let's start off when I was a little wee toddler. Hey, low key though, you see the kid had some low key biceps when I was like 10 years old. Those are about as big as my biceps now. But I chose a quote from Oprah, and it's, passion is energy. Feel the power that comes from focusing on what excites you. Far too often we move away from what excites us, right? We say, I don't know what I'm passionate about. Go back to when you were a kid. What did you like? What made you tick, right? So that's why I showed these pictures here. One is of me camping, right? With my family. That's my little cousin, my little brother in the background, my dad. You can't really see him because he's under the tree. But I loved camping. I loved getting outside of what I knew and just experiencing something different, some sort of adventure, right? And I love those trips, both camping and skiing. I look forward to them every year. And they ultimately had a big impact on me. And then also in this next picture, you'll see that I was a huge athlete when I was young. I was played football, basketball, baseball, whatever it was, I was playing. Me and my friends and my brothers, we had a backyard bowling league in our backyard where it usually ended where somebody got into a fight. But it was a huge part of my identity. And again, it's what makes me tick. And so many times when I'm talking to young people, they're like, oh, I like sports, but how am I supposed to be, get a career in sports? I'm not going to be a professional athlete. But again, you don't have to be a professional athlete to build a brand within sports. If sports is what you love, stick with it. And here to the side is my best friend growing up, Jason. He went to the University of Hawaii and played football. And so ultimately his story is going to get pulled through this presentation. But yeah, ultimately, when I was a kid, I loved adventure, doing something different. I loved sports. And I also loved helping people. Like my mom would always tell me I was the kid who would like pull up, to somebody on the street who's panhandling. She'd be like, you would always give them like $2, not one, but $2. And I remember always getting in debates with my dad. I'd be like, but Dad, that's not fair. This isn't fair. And he's like, son, life ain't fair. And he would always tell me that life isn't fair, but it was because I had this innate want to do good and wanted things to be fair and equal for people. All right. So another quote I picked is two roads diverge in a field. I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. Now, I'm jumping ahead. When I was in high school, I got an opportunity to go to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is clear cut on the other side of the damn country from Los Angeles. Now, for those of y'all who are in Dr. Moore's class, you probably know a little bit of my story because I mentioned it, but that was a huge risk. That was the farthest away from home anybody I knew was going. It's like the only reason you go that far is if you're going to an Ivy League, and I damn sure wasn't going to one of those. But I took the road less traveled, right? That adventurous spirit, the spirit that wanted to travel led me there. And ultimately, they have a big sports program, right? Wisconsin has a huge sports program. I had the opportunity to go to Grinnell, Iowa, or Wisconsin-Madison because the scholarship that I got, it could take you to one of those two schools. I chose Wisconsin because it had a big sports program. So I knew at least part of my identity I would be able to tap into there. Now, a few years, you know what? I'm gonna skip this picture here and just jump into the next part of my story. So while I was at Wisconsin, I wanted to study abroad in South Africa. And so that's why I chose this quote here. It's when obstacles arise, you change your direction to reach your goal. You do not change your decision to get there. So I applied to South Africa because, again, I had already traveled to Wisconsin. I'm starting to develop this passion even more for traveling the world. I figured if I could do it to Wisconsin, I could do anywhere. So I went to Canada for this summer, and now I'm like, all right, now I'm about to go to South Africa. I only had housing for one semester. I was ready to go, and the door got slammed in my face, right? I didn't get accepted. I didn't have housing for the next semester. So I was like, what am I going to do? So it turns out I actually went to London because that was the opportunity that presented itself. And this is the group I was with, right? So all white folks, which is cool, but it's not what I expected. I wanted to go to South Africa and be around, I didn't know what I was going to be around. Instead, I went to England with other kids from the University of Wisconsin. Now, this kid here, the one right in the middle who looks high as hell, and yes, he was high as hell. That kid right there, he became one of my best friends when we were in England. And the reason why is because I could just tell he had, some sort of innate knowledge. He just seemed confident in who he was. So while I wanted to be in South Africa, I wasn't, right? I went to England, I went to London, and I started traveling with this dude, and he's taught me how to backpack, and I went on a week-long backpack trip with him. I really started figuring it out. So this traveler identity in me really started to build, and in large part due to him, because he kind of showed me the ropes about basically how do you go travel somewhere with the backpack? How do you figure it out? And I just followed him, and I learned a lot. So then finally, my senior year, I finally made it back. I applied to South Africa. I got accepted, and it wasn't when I wanted to go. But now, by the time I got there, I was a lot more expert of a traveler, right? I was confident going on little weekend trips. I had never traveled completely on my own, but I knew when I was in South Africa that I was going to take on that challenge because I had already built up enough of a foundation within this area to really do something different. So without going into all the pictures, this is a picture of me on top of a mountain in Cape Town. My senior year, I was a lot more confident in myself, as I mentioned. And then I traveled all around Africa. I went on a 3-week trip through Southern Africa. I went to Egypt by myself for 2 weeks. And now I was fully confident in who I was as a traveler. I loved it. I identified as a traveler. I identified as a backpacker. And it became an identity that I fully took on. However, lo and behold, I graduated college and I went back to LA, and this is how I felt often. Like, I had no plans. I really didn't. I never figured out how to leverage my travel and that identity of mine into the next opportunity. I hadn't planned for anything. So I went back to LA. I'm grinding. I'm working at like a fast food restaurant. I'm working at like what are those little spots called? Oh, like a summer camp. I worked at a homeless center for women in downtown. And I was just trying to pick up work wherever I could, all work that I felt like was still service oriented. I told y'all from the jump at the beginning, I always liked, treating people well and trying to make the world a better place. But eventually I got a job for the same organization that trained me to go to college, called the Posse Foundation. And I worked there as a trainer, and I started to develop a new skill set, right? I've always liked communicating and being kind of an extrovert. And now I really got to develop the skill as a facilitator. And I loved it. I love facilitating conversation. I felt like, you could have people in the same space with different world views, but if you're able to facilitate a good conversation, they might be able to come to some sort of understanding. And it really spoke to my identity as a child of like wanting things to be better and wanting to make the world a better place, right? Oftentimes when I talk to college students, especially black and brown college students, I'm like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, I just want to make the world a better place. I just want to contribute. And that's good, but we have to hone in on what does that actually mean, right? How do you do that in an area in which you excel? So I worked at this organization for Posse for 3 years. I loved it. And I actually had the opportunity to climb the ranks, and I got offered a director position in New Orleans. New Orleans was one of my favorite cities, loved it. But I didn't feel like it was right for me because I still felt like my spirit wanted to travel more. My spirit wanted to experience more of an international life. And I knew if I took that director role at 25, you shouldn't really take a strong position without giving it at least 2 to 3 years, because then you're not going to learn what you need to learn to be effective at your job. So I'm like, well, that's going to put me at 28, 29. Then I'm going to need to have a baby and a family and all this stuff, right? I freaked myself out. I'm like, that's not the path for me. I want to travel, right? So what I did is I went to Korea to teach English, because once I was in Korea, I knew I could save up enough money to reach my ultimate goal at that point in my life, which was backpacking Southeast Asia for a few months. Okay. So I went to Korea, did that. I'm like giving y'all abbreviated version so we could get to the branding part. Went to Korea, had a great time, loved it. Again, I'm continuing to add on to my identity, my profile, my brand as this traveler person. And once after I finished, I went to Southeast Asia by myself with just a backpack. And I want to, wait, can y'all see that? Did I just mess that up? Uh-oh, I don't know what I just did. Uh-oh. Let me out of here. The whole screen, okay. Sorry, I don't know what I did. I'm gonna just leave it. Shit. All right. Either way, I'll just go. I put up a quote here. It's from General Westmoreland. He was the leader of the armed forces during their Vietnam War. And this is what he said, mind my language. He said, the nigger gook wak oriental doesn't value life like we do. And the reason why I shared that is because traveling also allowed me to realize how I could better serve humanity, right? I realized that America is a huge international bully, and we have a very murderous history, right? For all the years that we've been a country, only 17 years we haven't been in war. 17 years, right? And when I was in Vietnam, I really got to experience what this was like firsthand. So this gentleman over here, I was in a boat. I was going to this little village that you can only reach by this riverway. No roads got there. And when I got there, well, first I saw this guy on that little boat, and I'm asking the dude who's taking me, I'm like, hey, like, that's an interesting looking boat. He's like, look closer. So I'm looking at it. He's like, you know what that is? I'm like, no. He's like, that's an American bombshell, right? He turned it into a boat because it never exploded. And then he was telling me, he was like, there's so many bombs around here that never exploded. People still are getting blown up by these bombs. I'm like, wow, it's crazy. I'm like learning, my mind is going crazy. I get to this little village, and I realized that this village in the surrounding area, America dropped bombs every day for 8 years after the Civil War. I mean, after the Vietnam War was over. I'm in Laos now, right? So this is Laos, this country here in the black. And you know, all the spots that are red were pretty much where America would bomb every single day. So this community that I was in, they ultimately were bombed back into the cave. They showed me the cave and they showed me how they were living in there. And then one of the dudes was like, yeah, my mom grew up in this cave for 8 years because they weren't allowed to go outside because we were dropping bombs every day. So ultimately, I'm also learning now. I'm traveling. I'm getting this experience, but I'm also learning how to be a critical thinker. I'm starting to make connections. I'm starting to think, how can I use these stories that I'm experiencing to create a better world? And I wanted to contrast that last quote with this one because I met these two girls at a bus station, and they didn't speak no English. But what they did was they ended up taking all my clothes. Well, I was kind of like switching bags. All these clothes are mine. Like, that's my shirt. That's my shirt. You see her down here with the water bottle and the hat. She's literally trying on my stuff, posing for pictures. It was just a hilarious ordeal because I was stranded at the bus station for 8 hours and I didn't have nothing to do. So I ended up interacting with these young girls for about 5 hours, you know, using my clothes as costume dressed up. If you look through my camera, I have tons of pictures of these two little girls. I was having a great time. And the quote I wanted to share is that no one can be authentically human while preventing others from doing so. And I think that General Westmoreland quote, by suggesting that someone doesn't value life as much as you do, speaks to how we've dehumanized others, right? So I'm like, I want to present a different way. I want to show a different image of this part of the world, one that shows, you know, unity between people. So ultimately, these experiences that I had, and when I was on this backpacking trip, I applied to graduate school. I know y'all have heard this story. Dr. Moore, I go to a internet cafe. I call Dr. Moore, finally get it set up. I'm all excited. We get on the phone, and he's like, hey man, let me call you right back. I'm like, Doc, you can't call me back. He's like, why? I'm like, man, I'm at an internet cafe in Vietnam. Like, I'm 13 hours ahead of you. There's no way you can call me back. He's like, what? He's like, and you black? I'm like, yeah. He's like, and you traveling in Vietnam? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm out here by myself. He's like, you by yourself, man? You backpacking in Vietnam by yourself? Hey, man, I got a job for you. And it was at that moment where it clicked, where everything that I had just been following my passion for, right? My whole life, just follow your passion, follow your gut instinct. Yeah, maybe this looks like a better career opportunity, but if your passion is pulling you stronger this way, follow your passion. Even though I liked my job at Posse, I loved my job at Posse, I ultimately decided to follow my passion and travel. And this was that moment where my life changed. Now, everything that I had done following my passion became my brand. And all of a sudden it just switched. So what did that actually mean? What did that look like? I came to UT and Dr. Moore put me in charge of his global leadership initiatives, which gave me a huge platform. We have we take the most students abroad at UT in terms of our Maymester programs. Nationally, we have one of the best and robust programs in the country. So when I go speak at different conferences, everybody always comes to ours like, how do you all get so many students of color abroad? So here, there's a picture of us in Cape Town. There's another picture of me at Cape Town. And mind you all, look at the title of my dissertation. This is the title of my dissertation. From enclosure to exposure to enactment, a phenomenological study on the experiences of 20 Division I Black student athletes abroad. I literally came here and studied exactly what I'm interested about. I told you I love sports. I told you I love adventure and traveling. And I was able to come here and make a career by combining those two things. Remember I told you all about this gentleman, my best friend? Well, when he was in Hawaii, he ended up getting injured again. So he couldn't play football no more. Ended up getting addicted to drugs, ended up selling drugs, ended up getting raided by the FBI and had to come home to LA, barely finishing his college degree. once he was back in LA, we were all in LA. This is when I was working for Posse. He became overly addicted to his drugs, went to rehab, almost committed suicide, was drugged out for years, for years. And I was like, man, I swear part of this is because he doesn't know who he is without football, right? That's all he knows. And I kept thinking, when I was in college, I'm traveling all around the world and I'm really starting to understand who I am in a global context, you know, really adding on to these various aspects of my identity, and his is being shrunk. So I'm like, I need to do something about this, right? I like helping out. I like travel. I love sports. So I'm going to research that, the intersection of Black student athletes and their international experiences. And does that contribute them to having a better time transitioning out of sport? Are they going to be more professionally inclined? Are they going to be stronger academically? And are they going to have a higher understanding of themselves? So that's what I was able to study, right? Literally sticking with my passion, staying in my lane. A lot of people are like, is that going to land you a job? Shit, I don't know. It's interesting to me, right? And when you do what's interesting to you, nobody will outcompete you at that. Every time I go to a conference, I'm presenting on the same things. I'm staying kind of in my lane, right? But it's not so stuck. In many ways, it's varied, right? I do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work for my stuff with Posse. That's part of my brand. I do study abroad, global engagement, professional skill set development. That's part of my job. And then I still work in and around sports. So I have these three kind of tiers, but all kind of framed around the same brand. So another quote, only those who risk going too far can possibly find how far one can go. Oftentimes we set limits on ourselves and what we could do with our passion, right? So I like traveling. So I could set a goal of, hey, I want to travel once a year. That's a great goal for somebody who likes to travel. Another goal is, hey, not only do I want to travel, I want to help other Black and brown kids travel abroad. So I started a nonprofit, the World Walker Foundation. You see my shirt over here, Travel Black, World Walker. This was the first fundraiser I did with my brother and my best friend. Now he's no longer on drugs, right? And what we did is we ran a Tough Mudder, again, something adventure-oriented to raise money to start the foundation. By starting this is what helped lead me into my current job with UT. So I think it's super important, and I'm about to open it up for questions. I said I'll go to 30 to 40 minutes, so that's at 30. I think when we think about our brand, we gotta stop focusing on the brands that are out there, stop focusing on everybody else, and really get introspective and think about who you are, what do you like, what makes you go. And if you don't know right now, think back to what you did as a kid when you had no stress, when the stress didn't blind you. You did what you liked. You did what made you have fun, right? And now sometimes we might not even know what that is because we're always trying to do what's right. We're trying to get the best grade. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that, right? Figure out what makes you tick. Get experience around that. Become a critical thinker around that. And then become a problem solver, right? The problem that I solve at UT is I can motivate Black and brown kids to go abroad. It's not the biggest problem that I'm solving, but I'm solving a problem that speaks to my passion, right? So if it's Monday at 6 o'clock and they're like, hey, can you come do a workshop? This stuff around stuff that makes me happy. If I get to talk in some way, shape, or form about a brand or my own journey and traveling and how that's made me who I am, sure, I'll do it at 6 o'clock when the workday ended at 5. Because it's not like work, because I'm in my brand. I would do this stuff for free. However, it's not always free, right? So I recently wrote an op-ed and it got published in Diverse Issues of Higher Education, right? Some national, like online journal that, it's just an op-ed. However, I posted, try to let people know. I posted on LinkedIn and I started getting some feedback and a lot of people, liking it or commenting or people retweeting it. And, it picked up a little juice, definitely not like viral juice, but some juice. Somebody reached out to me. They say, hey, I've had like 5 meetings because of that, right? At least, and hella messages back and forth. I talked to this guy the other day. We had a good conversation like 2 weeks ago. And again, he was asking me, hey, can you come speak at my university? It's Zoom. I'm like, cool, right? If it's something like this that's in my lane, I'm not expecting money, wasn't anticipating it. It's fine. I got on the phone with him the other day and he's like, yeah, so I mentioned an honorarium to you, but I didn't tell you how much. So now I got a budget, for this talk that's going to be 90 minutes. We're thinking, we can offer you somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm like, anywhere in there is fine for me. Like, let me know what works best for you. And then he's like, all right, just draw me up an invoice. So I'm like, all right, well, what number within the 1 and 2,000 works for you? Like, it's fine for me. He's like, oh, 2,000. Right. So now I'm going to get paid $2,000 to go speak for 60, 90 minutes because I've been continuing to build this brand. So while sometimes I do things for free, last week or 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, I was doing something for free Saturday morning, right? If you love what you do, sometimes you're going to do it for free because you love it and it doesn't matter. But then other times people are going to pay you to do that stuff. Right? My focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, the idea that I want things to be fair has yielded me about $10,000 in consulting money in the last 4 months. But growing up, I never focused on how am I going to get money. That was never my focus. My focus was how am I going to live a happy life? How do I wake up on Monday and enjoy what I'm doing? If you wake up on Monday and you're not happy, if you're dreading your Monday, you're dreading your week, you're dreading your month, you're dreading your year, you're dreading your life. You got to find a way to figure out what makes you happy and do that. And when you do that and when you prioritize that, you yourself will feel good. You'll find enough money to pay your bills. And then eventually that money will come back to you. I had never made over $40,000 until I was 33, until I got this postdoc. Never made over $40,000 in my life, right? But I had a lot of experiences that were countless. I've been to 34 countries, got to travel internationally with every member of my family. Now I get to travel with my fiance and my daughter. And this year, not to get all in my pockets, but I don't mind talking about money because I feel like it's important for young people to know how, like, what is a reasonable thing money-wise, right? I never made more than $40,000 when I was working at Posse full-time in LA, still didn't make 40. And then now I'm getting to do what I love. And this year, my goal is to crack 100. I'm not saying I'm going to get there, but with all my various consulting different things, I'm close and I hope I can crack it. But again, that's because now I have a brand. And now I can get side projects. I can hustle side money on any one of these 3 things. Something that relates to sport and identity development, things that focus on international education, and diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And they all kind of merge together, but they're also all slightly different. So again, what do people know you for? If you went back to your 5 best friends in middle school and had them, they each wrote down like 5 adjectives or told 5 stories about why they appreciate you, what would it be? Do you know? Maybe you know. And maybe that's like an indicator of where's something that you actually are really passionate about and something that you actually might really excel at. Because I'm guarantee if you go back and you talk to my family members when I was a kid, which is why I started with these pictures of me, people would say the same thing. He's a risk taker. He likes adventure. He loves sports. And he always wanted to help people. And I've been privileged enough to be able to stay on that lane. And of course, you go divergent. You do different things. I've worked as a server. I've worked all these other jobs, right? But at the core, I've always kind of tried to stay focused on what I'm passionate about. And then ultimately, you will develop enough experiences where those experiences are now your brand. That's all I got. Questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question. So first of all, I want to say thank you. Like, This was like an amazing presentation. I don't know. I'm a bit emotional because I don't know, everything you said, it spoke to me, and it goes to show that you had to follow your heart. You had to follow what motivates you, what drives you. But my question for you was, how do you build confidence in yourself? Because I'll say confidence is key in like everyday life, but I'll say, if you want to build your brand, you have to first be reassured with yourself. And
Yeah,
so,
totally. I think it goes back to doing things that you enjoy, right? Like I know shit is stressful right now, and this is not the world we should be living in, and we're all fearful for what's going to happen tomorrow, and we should be, because we live in a crazy ass country and we're in a crazy ass pandemic. With that being said, there's opportunities right now. There's an opportunity to learn about yourself, right? Like, what goal are you setting for yourself before you start schoolwork on a Monday or a Tuesday? Little things. You build confidence in yourself by doing what you said you're gonna do. It's as simple as that. If you like, all right, you know what? This has been a challenge in my life. This is random. It just popped in my head. Brushing my teeth at nighttime. I know it sounds stupid, right? But of course you're gonna brush your teeth in the morning because you don't be walking around with stinky ass breath. But at nighttime, you're like, oh, I'm going to bed anyways, right? And it's been a challenge. But once I started doing that, and I'm like, wow, now I'm accomplishing this goal every day. It made it that much easier to set another goal and accomplish that goal. So start with little things, right? Like, is it Eileen?
yes, it is.
Right? Maybe you like walks, right? Find a way to walk 3 times a week. Find a way to walk before you start doing what school is telling you to do, before you start looking at your emails, right? Walk for 10 minutes in the morning, set a goal and accomplish it. And then it gives you confidence to set bigger and bigger and bigger goals, right? I mean, I wanted to go to South Africa. I mentioned this in class today and I got denied. And now I lead trips to South Africa, right? So there's an arc. The goals that I set originally were a lot smaller than the goals I'm setting for myself now. But I had to accomplish the little goals in order to continue to build my confidence to accomplish bigger goals, right? My dissertation that I just showed y'all was 327 pages. As an undergrad, I never wrote a paper more than 20 pages, and that I probably plagiarized, to be honest, right? I mean, not like fully plagiarized, but I'm sure it wasn't the best piece of work. Now, how do I get there, right? Like my advisor would always tell me, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? You have to set small goals and figure it out. And I also wanted to name, I think, it's not like obstacles aren't going to get in the way to following your passion. And I'm going to use my dad because there was numerous obstacles with my father as it relates to like my travels. He was terrified of me going to Africa for his own ways in which anti-Blackness worked within him, even though he's a Black man, right? He didn't want me to go at all, right? He would cry in church every weekend. He would tell me. So that I had to push past my father and just be like, look, I'm going, I want to do this, right? When I got back and then I got the job with, when I got the job with Posse in New Orleans, I was in LA, but they promoted me to go to New Orleans. My dad was like so about it. He's like, man, this is a great career opportunity. You're 25 to have a director position at this age is going to do wonders for your career. You love New Orleans. This would be great. And I'm like, no, I'm going to Korea, right? Like that's where my passion lies. I'm going to Korea. And he resisted, but ultimately that's what I did. Now, 3 weeks, my last day of working for Posse, I'm supposed to leave to go to Korea 2 weeks later. The last day I'm working for Posse, I'm about to go have like a party at the beach with my friends, my coworkers. I get to the beach, something feels off. My mom calls me. She's like, have you talked to your dad? I'm like, no. She calls me back again, like 10 minutes later, like 20 minutes later, have you talked to your dad? I'm like, no. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know. Something's not right. I'm going to his house. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to his house too. So I leave my little beach party before anybody else got there. And ultimately, my dad died that day, right? So my dad didn't want me to go to Korea. He wanted me to go to New Orleans. I'm literally supposed to go move to the other side of the world 10 days before I'm supposed to do that. My dad dies on the day that I'm leaving my job. So it turned out to be like a super great day, turned out to be a horrible day. But again, right, like, although I had a lot to fix and do here in LA to help make sure everything got pushed forward, and I had to push my trip back a week, I still went. And it was hard. How you go and leave your brother? How do you go and leave your mom? Like, your dad didn't even want you to go. It would have been so easy to stay. It would have been so easy to stay and give up on that dream, right? But if anything, I think what I learned from my dad, even though he might not have said it, is like, you got to follow your passion. And in doing that is ultimately what led me here today. You know, when I climbed that mountain, the picture, you know, the image that I showed when I first showed my picture of like the title page, is like a me on a mountain, and it's like, it kind of looks like a sunset coming out of my face. That's why I like it. That was me on this this mountain in 2007. And I set a goal that day. First, the goal was, I want to go to South Africa. I want to go to Africa, right? That was a huge goal of mine. Then when I climbed that mountain, I set another goal. I said, I want to help other Black and brown kids experience this, right? That was 2007. 2014, I work at UT. I'm the TA for the trip. I'm developing the programs for the trip. I climb up that mountain and I literally get to watch every single student in the program who chose to do the hike that day, which was at least 40 of them. I got up there first. I saw every one of them get to the top of the mountain, and I just looked dead in their face. And I'm saying, Devin, this is the goal you set on this mountain 7 years ago. Now you're watching it happen as each student walks by you. Just seeing the energy on their face and the joy and the accomplishment. And y'all ain't got mountains here in Texas. So most of them had never climbed a damn mountain before. Right. And in that moment, I saw them having the same experience I had. It wasn't just about accomplishing this mountain. It was about accomplishing a goal. Right. And the confidence that that was going to give them to go for their next goal. So now I accomplished this goal on the same mountain 7 years later. So now what? I set a new goal. I'm going to start a nonprofit, and I'm going to figure out how to get little kids here. Right. So I think every time you accomplish something, it gives you that momentum to go for the next thing. But you're only going to do those things if you do what you love, right? You got to do what you love, or the goals that you set won't really be your goals. They'll be goals that other people set for you. You know, you'll be so focused on like goals at work, like, oh, I got to sell this many products, and like that'll driving you. And it's like, is that really what you care about, selling a product? So thank you for your comments. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation.
No, thank you.
Other questions? I'll say this, if nobody's gonna ask me a question. I think LinkedIn is a great way to build your profile, to build your brand. But also, I'll say this, you know what's a good activity for y'all to do? Get with a friend, give your friend full access to your Twitter, to your Facebook, to your Instagram, right? All those profiles, and then they'll tell you what your brand is. If you have a profile, a social media profile, you've created a brand for yourself unknowingly. The pictures that you take, when you take pictures, why do you take pictures? Who do you take pictures with? When you post something, what is it? What is it about? Right? So you all are already creating and manufacturing brands for yourself. You just might not be as aware of what you're doing. But if you give your social media profiles to somebody else and you ask them, what's my brand? They'll tell you. I can tell you. You're telling me something about yourself. But we're not always so conscious or confident about what are we actually telling people when we post something, when we post a picture, right? So I think all those are opportunities to hone in and build your brand. You don't have to, you know, for example, my daughter, she loves art, right? She's 12. And I've been encouraging her to build a brand around it. She starts selling her products. Her mom takes a picture of it on Instagram and starts marketing her products. Now she has people buying her artwork. She's 13. She sells them for $20. And as she continues to make all her art, we're encouraging her to think, what's your brand as an artist? If nobody was going to pay you for a painting and you just sat down and were going to paint, what would you paint? What are the colors that you most gravitate to? And the way we figured that out is, which colors are you always running out of? She was like, I don't know what I like to paint. I don't know what my favorite, or which colors don't you have right now? Why? Oh, because because I'm oftentimes using the yellow. Well, why are you using the yellow? Oh, because I make a lot of suns. Okay, well, why do you make suns? Because I like nature, right? Sometimes just by asking yourself enough why questions, you can figure out what it is that you love and what is your brand. And now the good thing about her as it relates to her art, she loves art. And she's also starting to identify, she loves painting women of color and flowers and nature. That's kind of her brand. But she didn't know that 5 months ago when she first started kind of slinging her paintings. But in doing so, now she's really kind of started to focus in like, all right, this is what I'm best at. This is what I like to do. And this is what I'm comfortable doing if nobody's paying me for it. And those are always the pieces that people want to buy. The piece that she just randomly created rather than a piece that she tried to create for somebody specifically, because it's like innately coming out of her. Alicia got a brand. When we were in South Africa, Alicia was very structured, right? And I'm not very structured. And I remember there was this one moment we were trying to get kids back on the bus, and Alicia yelled at him like, if you're not in Emory or Fly, get on the bus. And I put her to the side. I'm like, yo, Alicia, like that, they're just out here trying to enjoy the day. Like, I know we're trying to get things moving, but I don't know if that's the way you really want to talk to them. She's like, well, you know what? I appreciate you giving me that feedback, Devin. And I appreciated the fact that she received my feedback. So the following year, when I was a professor of the course now to China, I know that Alicia is focused. I know that Alicia is going to knock out logistical things. I know that's part of her brand, right? I also know that she can deal with my feedback because I give a lot of feedback, right? So she was my first pick when I got to choose a TA, right? So I'm like, I chose her first because I knew enough about her brand to know that that part of her can complement this trip, right? And now she's used her international experiences to develop research. So again, it's about using what you have and what you know and what you experience to craft some sort of brand for yourself. Anybody else got a question? Caesar, what's up? Nat, Tennille, Johanna, you was the first one on here. I know you got a question.
How did you go about financing your trips?
That's a great call. I'm still paying off loans for it. But again, like, if you're passionate about something, make it happen. You know, figure it out. And you know how much I travel now? It's not even like, most of the time it's paid. I've been in China twice paid, Dubai paid, South Africa 3 times paid. Every year I go to New York twice paid. I literally get paid to travel now because of that initial investment off travel. Does that make sense? So like, even I went to Tulum. I took me and my family, my fiance and my daughter, we all went to Mexico last 2 weeks. I was teaching from there, or at least there. And I'm like, the next time I go there, I'm gonna wrap it into some sort of business oriented trip, so I ain't got to pay to go. So it is expensive. I do think you can raise money for it. That's what I always encourage people, because even that, you're starting to build a brand, right? How do you market what you're doing? How do you engage people? How do you offer small products, right? Like bracelets, a bracelet like this, like somebody who's not in South Africa would love a little dollar bracelet. So you say, oh, every $20 I get, I'll give you a bracelet if you donate $20. And it enters you into a raffle. And the raffle gets like a handmade South African meal when I get back, right? So for $20 raffle ticket, you get a bracelet and you get to enter into this contest or whatever, right? And when I get back, I'll make you a handmade South African meal. $50. Okay, you get a bracelet and you also get, you know, a shirt. $100. You get a bracelet, you get a shirt, and you get some sort of piece of wood, carvature, you know, South African wood carvature, something like that, right? I've seen a lot of students in our programs raise hella money, where they're not paying a dime to go, right? And then part of the brand that they build after that is they raise so much money. Now part of their brand is they know how to apply for scholarships. They know how to apply for grants. When I led a grant workshop, I had one of those students help me as the facilitator because now that was part of her brand. So now she gets to put that that workshop that she did on her resume and her CV, which further builds her brand. Does that make sense? Oh, the following week is Study Abroad 101. Boom, boom, boom. Who you got teaching that one?
Oh, I'm not on mute. I was trying to unmute myself. I hit up because I know you've got Costa Rica sessions coming up, so I figured you would be hitting the students up in class for yours, right? Or it's Costa Rica and South Africa? Aren't those info sessions
I have
coming
one
up?
on Friday at 2:30.
Yeah.
But the applications are due November 15th, but they might extend them this year. It's crazy. But
yeah, so after those, we have the director of study abroad coming in. I sent her an email and she said that she would come in and promote the other programs that we're not already promoting through class.
Word.
Yeah.
Word. Any other questions y'all got? No, nada.
I have another question. For the application to study abroad, I know there's like writing workshops this Wednesday and next Wednesday, is that right?
Yeah.
What kind of stance would you recommend like taking on that? Like, what are you guys looking for in those applications?
Specificity, either specifics about yourself and why this destination and this program works for you, or specifics about the location and what you want to experience there, and something about their history or their culture or an organization that you feel like will really help push you towards where you want to go. All right, now that you brought these workshops, I want to tie this back into this branding thing again. So when I got here, I went to the study abroad office, asked me to speak at an event. It was a first gen Longhorns event. And they had all these first generation students, and they pretty much asked all these different people on campus to get up and speak for 2 minutes. And by the time I got up and spoke for 2 minutes, I was already bored as hell. I'm like, man, this shit is boring, right? Like, ain't nobody in the audience listening, right? It's boring. So again, I started trying to be a problem solver, right? Solution oriented. What could I do to be more engaging? So I created this diversity abroad showcase, right? Instead of having all these people talk, let's limit the talkers, and I'm gonna limit the PowerPoints because PowerPoints can be kind of boring. Only one PowerPoint. Then I'm gonna use cultural forms of communication. I'm gonna encourage cultural forms of communication. So every year somebody would do some sort of spoken word. Sometimes people would do theater, right? Some sort of performance, dance, singing, right? Just different ways to engage the audience, right? I had MCs that transitioned from one act to the next, and I had food, and that was it, right? But it was way more engaging, way more interesting. And then I also realized, in terms of working with the students, I realized, you know what? A lot of students are afraid to write this, especially first year students are hesitant to write the study abroad essay, right? They don't know what to do. And sometimes that limits them from doing anything. So I created these study abroad writing workshops just to give the students more confidence, right? So in many ways, I'm solving a problem. I'm trying to solve problems. But while I'm doing that, I'm building a brand. I'm adding on to my brand, right? In trying to make it more accessible for students of color and first-gen students, I'm developing all these events and stuff that actually just continue to build my brand. And I didn't even realize, sometimes I was talking to this dude at this other institution last week. He's like, man, you have all this knowledge. We got to write a book together. And he's like, and he works in international education and does all these stuff. And I was just giving him all these tips. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. Not even realizing all this stuff and knowledge that I know, because it's something that I love. Sometimes you don't even realize how unique you might be in a space. So I know that's not what you really asked me, but I felt like it was a good opportunity to highlight how being a problem solver, solving problems that are important to you, builds your brand. But yes, you come to the workshop. It's fun. The first 30 minutes will be like going over some examples of a good essay versus a not so good essay, or a not good essay versus a better essay, and pulling out why, what are the specifics, what makes this good, what makes the other one bad. And then the second 30 minutes is, we're working in groups and trying to actually get it done. All right. We got 1 minute left. Caesar, Tanil, what y'all got? They're like, man, we ain't even here. We just logged
I don't
on.
got a question, but I got a comment.
All right.
I just like to acknowledge your presentation. It was really good. Last year I was fortunate enough to see your presentation in person, and I could see how you have developed. Although it's just been 1 year, I could see your development throughout the year. And I think what you've done is really good. And I could see that process in you. You've done really good.
Thank you, brother Caesar. Compliment me. Y'all about to make me feel good when I go back and have some dinner with the fam. I appreciate that, bro.
You've helped me out a lot.
I was about to say, I was like, we've talked after class.
Yeah, we have.
I just remember it from your voice. Man, you gotta show me your face, man. That's what's up. What's up, bro?
What's up, man?
How you living?
I'm just hanging in there.
Just hanging in there. I feel it. But look, like I was saying before, man, a lot of y'all are at your homes, you're at your houses. It is exhausting to be on Zoom all day, but there's also opportunities to really tap into whatever it is that you want to do or you like to do. If you like working out, wake up and do that before you do anything else. Serve yourself first. It'll help you figure out your passion. It'll help you be more confident in yourself, right? Something I'm trying to do more consistently now is wake up and start reading with my coffee before I get on my emails and start doing what other people want me to do, right? So this is a unique opportunity. We're at home, right? You save 15 minutes walking to and from every class, right? So are you using that time to learn about yourself and to build your brand and to ultimately be more prepared whenever this kind of ends, that you'll come out more like a shooting star, right? You have stuff to offer, right? You can spend a lot of time on LinkedIn reaching out to companies or people that you think are interesting, and your network is your brand. Who you know is your brand, right? Well, Caesar, man, it's good to see you, brother. Holla at me. Let's meet. So I would love to check in with you.
All right.
Yeah, shoot me a line. All right. Anything else? I know we late.
No, this was all such fabulous information.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for sticking in here on what day is today? Monday?
Monday
7.
Monday before an election.
I know.
It's hard to be awake Monday before an election. Thank y'all so much for showing up today and for investing in yourselves. And thank you so much, Dr. Walker, for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All
Thank
right,
you.
y'all. Well, feel free to stay on and ask questions if you didn't want to do so in front of the group. If not, it was good to see you all, and good luck this week. Take it easy.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
All right, Caesar, peace.
Thank you.
Peace, peace. All right, we good.
All right. Let me stop.